Well, when you're talking about like what kind of things could they do? I'm just picturing some of these smaller operators that I know of. You know, they've got diesel. They're not planning to switch out and electrify their whole fleet, right? They've just 10 years ago or 7 years ago they just bought these new trucks.
Sure.
You know, that type of thing. Just how do you sort of approach it? You sort of have to find their vision first.
Yeah, we do. We have to find their vision. We have to I think you touched on a really important point. Like, we have to understand some of the backstory as well, right? Like, where have they come from?
Where have they put their capital over the last?
That's right. And so, I mean, there's a myriad of initiatives around efficiency. Like, diesel use is something that you use. Well, how are they tracking fuel burn rates? How are they then using, or are they tracking that sort of information? And if they are, what are they doing with that data?
Sometimes just a case of tracking it, not what they're doing, but just how they're tracking it.
It could be, yeah. And I think it goes back to a point Justin made, which I think is so critical in everything we do. What are you already doing?
Right.
Like, what are you already working on that perhaps we just haven't joined the dots on?
Right.
To go, okay, well, that practice that you're doing as a day-to-day part of your operation, have you looked at that in the broader ESG landscape to go, oh, you know what, that actually satisfies, these 10 different requirements? Or if we just adjust that, if we just start to use the data that we collect to look at efficiency rates of our mobile fleet, we can reduce diesel consumption by X%, which will then have flow-on effects to emissions targets and so on. So
I think really, we talked about materiality before, and across Ivan mentioned the ESG landscape. So, more specifically, if you're going and talking with an operator, throughout the E from ESG, you might be looking at anything from flora, fauna, water, groundwater, ecology, the S, stakeholder engagement, how you're managing, adjustees, overlapping tenure holders and the like, all the way through to native title and cultural heritage. And within the governance, what systems do you already have that are effectively managing some of these risks, as well as your legislative compliance obligations, and then helping them to build those processes out. And some of those strategies, like Ivan said, there might be something around, well, we've identified a high diesel usage. Is there an option for electrification? If you're a coal mine, well, what are we doing with the gas? Are we flaring the gas? Are we capturing the gas? Are we using it for CNG conversion for new trucks? Or have we got our own, gas power station on site that we're using to power the site and then put it back in to reduce our emissions profile? So there's a number of opportunities across the ESG spectrum, like Ivan mentioned, where there's initiatives that can be developed based on what's material to that business to make sure that they are better managing that risk.
Yeah, and one final piece, which I don't think we've hit on enough, is this is all about getting better. Right? This is all about improving performance. It's improving environmental performance. It's improving relationships with our communities of interest. It's improving governance and transparency. So all of this is about improving and getting better. And I think that's a point that we perhaps haven't touched on enough so far, is that, like, if you strip it all back to integrated risk management that you were talking about and just getting better, that's certainly part of what motivates me. Is, well, we can partner with organisations to just be better.
Yeah.